first moved to the little mountain town of Ashbrook, I thought I'd finally found peace. I had grown tired of city life, the endless noise, the traffic, the constant stress that chewed through me day after day. Ashbrook was supposed to be a fresh start. A quiet town surrounded by endless forest where the air smelled like pine and the nights were so silent you could hear your own heartbeat. I rented a small cabin just outside of town, tucked away near the edge of the woods. It was old, creaky, but charming in its own way. From my porch I could see the tree line stretching endlessly, the forest floor blanketed in fog every morning. The first week was bliss. I woke up early, brewed coffee, and sat on my porch while deer grazed at the tree line. The townspeople were friendly but quiet, polite nods in the grocery store, small talk at the diner, but nothing too personal. It wasn't until my second week there that I started to notice something odd. Every time the woods came up in conversation, people grew tense. They'd change the subject, glance at the floor, or excuse themselves. When I mentioned my plan to hike one of the trails, the waitress at the diner gave me a look I'll never forget. She leaned in and whispered, "Not all trails are meant to be walked." Then she quickly walked away before I could ask what she meant. At first, I brushed it off. Small towns always had their ghost stories, their legends. Maybe the locals liked scaring newcomers. But one night I decided to go for a walk down a dirt road near my cabin. It was around dusk, the sky fading to a deep orange. I noticed an old wooden sign nailed to a tree. The letters were so faded they were almost unreadable, but I could just make out the words, Hollow Woods Trail. Something about that name tugged at me. Hollow Woods. It sounded empty, strange. The path itself looked unused, overgrown with weeds, branches forming a dark canopy overhead. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. When I finally fell asleep, I dreamed of trees stretching taller than skyscrapers, their branches curling like claws. And in the dream, I wasn't alone. Something was moving in the shadows between the trees. The following morning, I asked my neighbor, an older man named Harold, about it. He'd lived in Ashbrook all his life, a tall man with weathered skin and sharp blue eyes. When I mentioned Hollow Woods, he went completely silent. After a long pause, he said, "Best to stay away from there. People go missing, always have. The woods don't give back what they take." Then he turned and walked inside, leaving me standing there with my heart pounding. I told myself it was nonsense, just superstition. But as the days passed, little things started happening around my cabin. I'd hear soft knocking on the walls at night, even though no one was outside. I'd wake up to find my front door slightly open, though I knew I had locked it. I froze, listening, and then I heard it. My name, whispered clear as day. Ethan. My stomach dropped. I didn't wait to hear more. I slammed my window shut and hid under the covers like a child. Sleep never came. The next morning I was exhausted. I tried to tell myself it was stress, my imagination. But that night I saw something that proved it wasn't. My body locked up, every muscle frozen. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, it stepped back into the shadows and vanished. I didn't sleep that night either. The next day, I drove into town, determined to find answers. At the library, I dug through old newspapers, archives, anything I could find about the Hollow Woods. What I discovered made my blood run cold. Over the past 50 years, more than 24 people had gone missing near that trail. Campers, hikers, even a sheriff's deputy once, all gone without a trace. The strangest part was that most of the disappearances happened around the same time of year, late autumn, just before the first snow, exactly when I had moved in. My name, over and over, pulling me toward the window, toward the woods. I shut every curtain, locked every door, but it didn't matter. Around midnight, I heard footsteps on my porch, slow, deliberate, then silence. I forced myself not to look, not to open the door. Hours later, when I finally gathered the courage, I found another bundle of sticks on my porch. This one wasn't tied with twine. It was bound with hair, human hair. I should have left right then, packed up my things and driven away. But some part of me needed to know the truth, needed to see what was inside those woods. And that was the mistake that would change everything. Because the next night, just after sunset, I lit a lantern, took a deep breath, and stepped onto the hollow woods trail. The hollow woods swallowed me whole the moment I stepped past the sign. The air grew colder, heavier, as though I had crossed an invisible line. The lantern's glow barely reached beyond a few feet, and the trees seemed to bend inward, their branches tangling like twisted hands. Every step crunched on dead leaves, but even that sound felt muffled, swallowed by the dark. The deeper I went, the more I felt it, an awareness, like the woods themselves were watching me. At first, nothing happened. I walked for nearly 20 minutes, the path winding deeper, the air thick with fog. Then I noticed something strange. The woods were too quiet. No crickets, no owls, not even the rustle of small animals. Just silence, broken only by my footsteps and my own uneasy breathing. Then faintly I heard it again, whispering, the same voices that had haunted me at night. Except now they were clearer, closer, surrounding me. I froze, straining to listen. The voices seemed to weave in and out of each other, an endless stream of words I couldn't understand. My name surfaced again, whispered in different tones, some high, some low, some almost childlike. Ethan. I turned in circles, the lantern swinging wildly, but there was no one there, only shadows shifting between the trees. I pressed on, though every step felt like a mistake. The path grew narrower, roots clawing up from the ground, forcing me to climb over them. My lantern flickered, and for a moment, everything went dark. When the light returned, I nearly screamed. The bundles of sticks were everywhere, hanging from branches, stacked against trees, dozens of them, all bound with hair, cloth, even bone. I knew then that people had been here before me, and not one of them had ever come back. I should have turned around. I should have run. But something pulled me deeper. A compulsion, a weight pressing on my chest, urging me forward. That's when I saw the first figure, just off the trail, barely lit by the lantern. Tall, thin, too thin. Its head tilted unnaturally, its arms hanging low like broken branches. I blinked and it was gone, but I could hear it moving, pacing me in the dark. The trail ended at a clearing. In the center stood an old cabin, sagging and rotten, as though it had been abandoned for decades. Its windows were boarded, its roof half collapsed. My breath fogged in the air, even though the night wasn't that cold. I felt drawn to it, though every instinct screamed to run. I pushed open the door. It groaned, and the smell hit me like a punch. Rot, damp earth, and something metallic, like blood. Inside, the cabin was empty. At least, it looked empty. Dust coated the floor, but there were no footprints. No furniture, no tools, nothing but bare wood. Then I noticed the walls. They were covered in carvings, dozens, maybe hundreds of them. Symbols I didn't recognize, spirals, jagged lines, faces with hollow eyes. And in the center of the room, burned into the floorboards, was a circle. The moment I stepped inside, the whispering grew louder. It wasn't around me anymore. It was inside my head. I stumbled back, clutching my ears, but it didn't stop. The whispers grew faster, urgent, overlapping. Then I realized they weren't just words. They were screams. Hundreds of voices crying out all at once. I dropped the lantern, and it rolled across the floor, its light casting long shadows on the walls. And in those shadows, I saw them. Figures, dozens of them, tall and thin, crowding the cabin, watching me with empty eyes. I bolted out the door, crashing into the woods, branches tearing at my skin. I ran blindly, no sense of direction, just desperate to escape. But the woods didn't let me go. The trail I had followed was gone. Every path twisted back on itself. No matter which way I turned, I ended up back at the clearing, the cabin looming in the dark. Panic clawed at me. I screamed for help, my voice breaking, but the woods swallowed the sound. That's when I heard it. A new voice, not whispered, not faint, loud, clear, right behind me. "Don't leave." I spun around and there it was, one of the figures. Its face inches from mine, pale and stretched, its mouth hanging open wider than it should. Black liquid dripped from its eyes. Before I could move, it lunged. I woke up on the forest floor. Dawn was breaking, pale light filtering through the trees. My lantern was gone. My clothes were torn, my arms and legs covered in scratches. Somehow, I stumbled back to the cabin. But when I turned the corner, my blood froze. The cabin wasn't there anymore. The clearing was empty. No circle, no carvings, no sign it had ever existed. I don't remember how I made it out. My memory is fractured, like pieces missing. One moment I was lost in the woods, the next I was standing at the edge of the tree line near my own cabin. The townspeople found me the next day, wandering the road barely coherent. They said I was lucky to be alive, that no one who enters the hollow woods ever comes back. But here's the part I can't explain. When I returned to my cabin, there was a bundle waiting on my porch, sticks tied together, this time wrapped with a strip of fabric from my own torn shirt. And sometimes late at night, when the wind dies down and the world is silent, I hear it again. My name, whispered from the woods. Patient, waiting. The hollow woods let me go, but I know it's only a matter of time before it comes to take me back.